We're trying to find the best way to bring it in and bring it forward. The energy of the dojo. Sensei Kwabin here. Moment with the master, number 36. Absolutely. This is new. This is new. We have backup music. And I'm doing something a little bit generous. I'm doing what I'm calling taking a seat. Family, I'm going to take a seat today and talk. Talk to the family about where we're at today and what the call is for us to go forward. It's time for clarity and consistency. It's time for clarity and consistency. Because as I open my eyes and open my ears and attune to the sound of what's around me, in addition to the band playing downstairs, accompanying this moment with the master, I'm inclined to ring the alarm. Ring the alarm, because what is playing out the drumbeat of the news, the drumbeat of what I'm observing, the drumbeat of what I'm feeling and sensing from people in my orbit and people around my community is that there is a heaviness of personal disorientation. Many people are heavy in these times, in these moments, and are experiencing disorientation. Maybe a little bit lack of focus. Direction is happening and settling into our general outlook on where we are and what's happening. Or possibly people are distracted and moving and being involved and engaging in things that keep our minds occupied with other things so that the heaviness does not weigh down on it, or we don't become as acutely aware of the disorientation that is forming and unfolding in us and around us. There are heavy pressures. Looking at this past week, looking at some of the news streams, looking at what's happening, we see that there are the popular titles, right? The popular topics of conversation have to do with what's happening in our job market. We see the loss of jobs. We see the decrease in the numbers of people employed. It had happened at the federal level. There had been some reorganization with that Department of Government Efficiency, but then there were orders that came down from the executive. I don't even really want to call the name, right? And that had an impact on the measures and the numbers of those in the federal government. And we see what's happening in the tech sector. And we see what's happening in hospitality. And we understand the movement of AI. And we understand that people generally are moving into their educational lives into a professional job market that does not hold out the same possibilities that it held for generations prior, years prior. Right? And so we see the heaviness of personal disorientation taking place. In addition to that, have we noticed or have we taken stock of the social rot that is happening in our personal lives, that is happening in our personal relationship, that is happening in the ways in which we engage one another, that we interact with one another? The social rot, the putrid smell of the social rot that did not happen overnight. The putrid smell of what it is that is before us, the opportunities, the possibilities, and the open or closed doors. Social rot has happened. And so now when we engage people, now when we engage opportunities, now when we look at open doors or possibilities of moving forward, we are facing it with the heaviness of a downward market, the realities of the social rot that's festering around us, and the difficulties that we have in bringing forward the best of our people, the best of our person rather, into those situations and opportunities. We all have personal pressures, right? For some of us, those personal pressures might show up in the physical realm. Many of us need to get moving. Many of us need to get moving dynamically. Many of us need to get moving for the purpose of preserving those elements of our faculties that we will need to draw on and that will push forward through this downward market and the social ride. We need to get moving. We need to get moving because all of the elements of healthcare and medicine may not address the things that materialize for us in years down the line. And this is why I say to brothers and sisters and people alike, one of the biggest elements, one of the biggest investments we can give to ourselves is that which we do that engineers our better physical health, that engineers the internal physical health, not just the external. I'm not just talking about going to the gym and pumping iron. Good, it's good. Muscular growth is good. Bone density is good. But we have to learn to engineer the whole physical self so that we can move into a place of better standing health-wise to face what's going to come years down the line. Do we think that what happened here now, do we think 2025 has just emerged? Do we think that these government slowdowns and shutdowns is something that's just appearing on our landscape? Or is it possible that we have been warned, that we have heard the call, that we have heard the alarm rung long before now, many years before now, about what is coming down the pike? To not get doled out on that government drip that they gave out for all of us to go to sleep for a moment so they could do the engineering project to get the data needed so that they can scientifically start to craft what tomorrow is going to look like. AI is not an accident. Job cuts, job losses are not an accident. Volatility in markets are not accidents. Seeing how behaviorally we respond to these things are not accidents. The door closing on the possibility of us reaching the pinnacle of our financial lives are not accidents. Who's retiring? Where's the pension? What's the value of the 401k? Who has investments? Where are the savings? Where's the earnings? What's the income levels that we're talking about? What is the interest rate? What's the inflation rate? Are we talking about the same thing? Are we dealing with the same world? Heavy pressures. So what am I selling here? What am I saying here? Because many are retreating or coping or hiding out or just dealing with it from a different perspective, managing in the best way we can. But what am I saying? I'm talking about going in to come out. It's like swimming. You ever see swimmers? They got to breathe, go in the water, come up and come out. If you know swimming, you know that there is a balance between breath and swimming, underwater and overwater, underwater. And we need to be able to manage the volatility that's coming forward. I'm talking about managing life, right? I'm even talking about managing what comes into and what escapes out of our universe. Oh, we each have a universe. Oh, absolutely. We each have a universe. When we interact with someone, when we meet someone, when we engage with someone, when we connect with someone, when we move into covenant with someone, we are in effect merging and pulling together two separate, distinct universes. And so what do we do, or how do we manage what comes into our thought universe, what comes into our physical universe, what comes into our emotional universe, what comes into our spiritual universe? How do we manage it? We're talking about managing the membrane of life. The essence is that we each have a membrane through which certain things can permeate and certain things should not be able to. If we aren't careful, the fact of the matter is that membrane will lose its vibrancy, lose its ability to resist, lose its ability to filter what is necessary to keep out of our universe or to be able to open up the portals to allow what's good to come into our universe. So we're talking about managing the permeable membrane of life, like a cell, like a human cell. In biology, cells have a layer and they have a way, a process of determining what gets into the cell and what does not get into cell. And that bodes for how healthy the cell is. And if that defense structure, that ability to keep from getting into the cell, doesn't work properly, then that cell will ultimately become possibly a diseased cell, and enter or introduce disease into the body. And so in the same way, we deal with the permeable membrane of life so that we are being mindful and that we being present with and managing what comes to our cell of life and what gets through that cell of life through osmosis and or transport. Sometimes we find that we transport the things and the elements of whatever it is that is having a difficult or a dynamic impact in our lives, what is having a detrimental impact in our lives, what is having a destructive impact in our lives. We have escorted that through the cell membrane into the nucleus of our universe. And what is in the nucleus of our universe? It's just like in the cell, it's our mitochondria. It's the energy facilitator. It's the energy producer that keeps us being able to fight off or to fight in or to continue on in this battle of life. And so we are introducing that we manage that permeable membrane of life, that we watch what we digest, that we watch what we enter into our minds, what we enter into our bodies, what we enter into our spirit, and manage so that osmosis just doesn't happen, that things just don't happen to show up. Oh my God, how did you get here? No, it didn't just get here. No, it didn't just happen. We made a determination to forego a present moment or we made a decision to enjoy a pleasure in the present moment, foregoing something in the future. We have some ways lost the discipline of sacrificing in the present moment, working in our own personal dojos of life in the present moment, putting the energy and the activity on the floor of life in the present moment so that we can reap the benefit of strong membranes of life that are protecting our universe in the future time. If we aren't where we are today, then we have work to do on protecting or strengthening or fortifying those things that keep our lives in order, those things that keep us in position to look and discern and differentiate on what's good and what's not good to come into this universe of ours. What many employers know and what many of us have dealt with is employers who sit across the table from us and they look at us and they ask us a barrage of questions trying to get to tell or trying to get to determine if we are suitable candidates for their job, right? And they sit there and they ask us questions and they're trying to manage our expectations. We're trying to manage their expectations. And sometimes something gets lost in the translation. Much in the same way, when we are entertaining new opportunities, when we are entertaining new people, when we are entertaining new possibilities, we do well to manage it like the managers do, to interview like the managers do, to do it like the corporate people do, and interview for life. Interview whatever it is that we are considering in front of us for life. Interview the person. Hey, are you a good fit? Is this opportunity a good fit? Is that a good dojo? Yeah, we do it on some not entirely conscious level, but we need to structure the interview now. Now we need to add elements of evaluation that lead us into the best types of answers and outcomes. You want to know why? Because the reality is that the decisions that we make today in this day and age, in this crucible of time, 2025, in this decade, not even a decade, in this year, 2020, 2021, 2022, that was just 3, 4, 5 years ago. 2025 through 2030, this is going to move at super rapid pace, super rapid change, super rapid deviations from things that we have known. No more security. So now we have to know how to move and how to plant ourselves, and so that in a way where the security that we had in the past, we're not relying on that in the same ways anymore. Many of us not moving forward with the financial security, the personal security, the emotional security, the intellectual security that we once had. Education is not happening in the same way. Community security is not there in the same way. Many of y'all need to come down to the dojo and learn how to get busy. Learn how to dig into the deepness and the recesses of your inner warrior. Come see Sensei Kwabin. Okay? But we're dealing oftentimes with haymakers and boulders, not of fists, but haymakers and boulders of life. Haymakers and boulders of negative info that we don't know how to deal with. How do we get up over the speed bump? How do we deal with the pothole? How do we deal with the setback? Have you been trained for that? Training is of the utmost importance. We need to have readiness for assumed roles. We don't go into the job interview without a readiness for the assumed role. So we all need to have the ability to look out and look inward, look out and look inward to determine our readiness. As a matter of fact, you know what? When we're interviewing for life, as we're managing our own personal selves, as we are positioning ourselves for what's important, there is a degree and level of personal self-development that is needed. And what comes along with that effort and energy of personal self-development, that means that we have to be positioned or ready or capable at personal self-performance evaluations. You think about the corporation or the entity that has as it a pool of employees, many of whom are being let go by the droves, right? And there's these things called performance evaluations. And sometimes these are informal performance evaluations. Sometimes they are evaluating and looking at us in ways that we don't even know. And we are being evaluated sometimes on a daily basis that will determine how that corporation deals with us. And what we need to do, we need to become the managers of our own personal performance. We need to become the managers of our own personal performance. I say it like this. We need to become the hiring managers of our own ambitions. Because if we evaluate ourselves and we give ourselves a standard that places us at a threshold, if we give ourselves a standard that places us at a place of awareness, that we measure ourselves higher than anyone who is going to look at us will measure us. Then what we do is we put ourselves a little bit above the fray and ahead of the game. I said in the last moment with the master that getting a head start on life in any endeavor is a hack to getting ahead. It's a hack. Getting a head start is a hack. And we know, and you know, and many people know that if you look at this person talking to you with a moment with the master here, right? You might be able to discern that I may not have had the head start that some others have had. Or I may have had to make sure that my feet are solidly and squarely on the ground so that forward advancement is in my hands. And that's what we're talking about. We're not looking for the handout. They're gone. They're wiping the slate clean. There is no more assistance, right? There's no more entitlement. We cannot rely on what we might hope to be there. We have to reach in to dig out. They turn the band back on, so I'm gonna raise the cadence on my voice, right? We have to reach back in to dig out because that stuff is not gonna be there anymore. We have to be the hiring manager of our own ambitions. And where we find ourselves lacking, where we find ourselves with the desire to be better, where we find ourselves with the orientation for improvement. I'll say that again. Where we find ourselves with the orientation for improvement, we should go and draft, and create a plan of correction. I know my shortcomings. I know where they're at. I know where I need to measure up. I know where I need to push. I know what I need to bring better on the table. I know what I need to polish. Plan of correction. Sensei Kwabin. Sit, meditate, breathe. Breathe. Breathe through your meditation. Breathe through your self-awareness. Bring yourself into a place where you can step up into what is required of you based on your own analysis and assessment. This is what we do that rubs off, that starts to emulate from us, that begins to show us the way. Hello, how you doing? Show us the way that we put our arms, we wrap ourselves up in a cocoon of betterment. Wrap ourselves up in a cocoon of betterment. I'm still talking about that plan of correction. And this is motivational to the people around us, to our families, to our coworkers, to our enterprise partners, to our love interests, to our all partners. If we're moving like that, what do you think is going to happen? How do you think they're going to resolve what they are processing in us that we are bringing forward? That's motivating. That is absolutely motivating. So what we want to do is enjoying supporters. What we want to do is invite, appeal to, right? We want to attract the type and alignment, the type of people who are in alignment, the alignment of minds, the alignment of hearts, the alignment of energy that is going to carry us through to a place where we find ourselves solidly seated on the ground. See ourselves solidly seated in a step of progression. See ourselves solidly moving in a path of clarity and consistency. There's a lot more to be said. I'm going to bring it down right now. You know, we can talk about how we reorganize ourselves. We can talk about that ultimate path to redemption. That ultimate path to redemption, right? We can talk about how we need to renew ourselves. We could talk about how sometimes we need to go through reorganization, but we'll get into that. What we say closing out this here is preserve the mission. Stay on game. Stay on game. Preserve the mission. If you ain't found your mission, get connected with your purpose. Stay on game. Don't get caught up in this protest lifestyle. Don't get caught up in it. Protest is necessary, but protest is just a tool to move us into a place of social awareness that people will be able to pick up on the cues of what change should look like. But if you live in a life of protest, if that is your profession, then you are stuck in a way that does not elevate, does not springboard, does not magnify in terms of how we are moving and progressing for our own personal orientation, our families, communities, and the world around us. Protest is important. We can't get stuck there though, right? So we just go forward, we keep perspective, and we get down and put our roots in the ground of clarity and consistency. This has been Sensei Kwabin, your beneficial sensei, with Moment with the Master number 36, talking about clarity and consistency. And as you already know, I'm going to get up out the chair and put something on the ground. Chisa, Sensei Kwabin, and I'm out of here. What's